Perhaps at some point in your life, you've lost hope. Maybe you try to better your communication with your wife, but nothing's happened. Maybe you try to improve your relationship with your child, but things are not going anywhere. Maybe you'd apply for that job, but no doors have been opened. Maybe everything you've tried has failed. And then you think, well, there's nothing left. I've lost all hope. The disciples had lost their hope. In fact, they believed that 3.5 years of investment of time, effort, travels, sweat, tears had ended with death. Some of them had denied Jesus, like Peter. Some had betrayed him, like Judas. Some had doubts, like Thomas. The rest just left him. But some of them stayed. The women. Come with me to Matthew chapter 28, verse 1. From last week, we remember that the time when Jesus was on the cross was a Friday afternoon. And Jesus had promised that he was going to resurrect after how many days? 3. So notice what verse 1 says. Matthew 28, now after the Sabbath, towards the dawn of the first day of the week, that is Sunday, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. Now, interesting about this is that they didn't go to the tomb to see if Jesus was alive. They went to complete a task that they were not able to complete on Friday. They carry the spices, they carry the oils, they carry everything needed to prepare the body of Jesus for a traditional Jewish burial. But the story changes. Because it's there where we find that Jesus has always hope for those who've lost it. Verse 2. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. You remember that in those days the tombs were different than what we have today. They were not beautiful places. In fact, they were just caves with rocks at the entrance. The rocks were not sealed completely to prevent decay odors from coming out. No, in fact, they were there to prevent animals from going in and eating the remains. But when the women came, there was an earthquake. If you remember the story, it was the Friday before when another earthquake happened. And on that first earthquake, there were people who resurrected. And guess what? On this earthquake, somebody else is resurrecting. I don't know if you see it, but apparently God has to shake things up before something coming back. Because Jesus has always hope for those who've lost it. Verse 3. The angel had an appearance. It was like lightning. His clothing was as snow, and for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. So we see two groups here. Those with hope see life again. Those who don't are like dead. Verse 5, but the angel said to the women, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen, as he said. Come see the place where he lays. Interesting. The angel asked him to see a place where Jesus was no longer at. The angel wanted to show the women that after the cross, there is a resurrection. Jesus wanted to show that after a fight, there's reconciliation. Jesus wanted to show that after doubt, there is assurance. Jesus wanted to show that after questions, there are answers. And Jesus wanted to show that after chains, there's always freedom. And Jesus wanted to show that after sin, there is forgiveness. Because after the cross, there is always a resurrection. What seems like an end to us with Jesus is always a beginning. Verse 7, then go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you. So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy and ran to tell the disciples. I don't know if you see it here, but the angel tells them twice, he is risen. What's interesting about this is that in the original New Testament, this phrase, risen, is the same words used for a sunrise. A while ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to go to the top of the volcano named Haleakala. That's in the island of Maui in Hawaii. And in order to go there, the legend says that it is there where the best, the most beautiful sunrises in the planet can be seen. So we were picked up from the hotel at around 3:30 in the morning. And we were taken in a van and we were given a special suit because it's Hawaii, but up there, 10,000 feet high, is super cold, especially before the sun rises. So we were up on the top of the mountain with this suit and we were cold. We were shaking. We couldn't speak right. Waiting for the sun to rise. We were above the clouds. And when the first rays of light began to shine through the clouds, it was a beautiful thing. The sun began to rise completely on top of the volcano, and it was so beautiful that we forgot about the cold, we forgot about the lack of sleep, we forgot about our hunger. It was a beautiful thing to behold. By the way, Haleakala means house of the sun. The sunrise. Everybody after that event, we had to bike down the mountain. I didn't see anybody sad or anybody cold. Everybody has a smile when you hear the news, when you witness that he is risen. But the most important thing about this story is that Jesus brings hope for now and for the future. Notice verse 9. These women are going to tell the disciples of the news that the angel brought. And behold, Jesus met them and said, greetings. Now, I can't imagine, I can't picture the scene, their faces, but I wish I were there. Because see, the women are running back to tell the disciples that Jesus is no longer in the tomb, that Jesus is risen, and then Jesus meets them. And kind of like a prankster, he goes, greetings. Can you imagine the faces of these women? The surprise, the joy, all these feelings and emotions combined because Jesus was alive. That meant that hope was not dead. Verse 10. Then Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. Jesus brought hope to the women there and was ready to bring hope to the disciples for the future. There's a story told about a disciple and his rabbi. And this disciple, after following this rabbi for a long time and listening to his wisdom and his teachings, he wanted to learn a little more. In fact, he had a question for the rabbi. And he asked the rabbi, "Teacher, I have a question for you." And the rabbi said to his disciple, "Tell me." So the student, with all the seriousness in the world, asked his teacher, "I want to know how I can get to know God better. How I can really know God personally. How I can really understand the plan of God for me." The disciple patiently looked at the disciple. The teacher looked patiently at the disciple and told him, "Follow me." So now, with more desire than before, the disciple is following his teacher. And they went to a town, and they went to another, and they went through the valley, they went through the hills, and the disciple was there following his teacher. Finally, they arrived to the place where a creek was flowing. The disciple asked his teacher, "Teacher, I followed you through town to town. I followed you through the valleys, through the forest. Please answer my question. How can I truly get to know God?" The teacher looked at his disciple again and said, "Follow me." And he brought him to the edge of the creek and told his disciple, "Kneel." So the disciple knelt. Now I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. He knelt. And as he knelt in front of the creek, the teacher tells him, "Look at the water. What do you see?" Now the student knelt at the edge of the creek, looking at the water, looking at his reflection. He said, "I see me." And as soon as he said those words, the teacher put his hand on his head and pushed him down in the water. Now the disciple is trying to get out of the water, trying to get his face, trying to get some air. And after a while, the teacher finally releases the student. And the disciple comes out of the water and he begins to grasp for air. And now the teacher looks at the disciple, all confused and wet, and tells him, "At the moment when you look for God with the same effort and desperation as you look for air, you will find Him." You see, family, the hope is still alive because the tomb is empty. And the promise remains the same. And then those will see the Son of Man risen, coming on the clouds of heaven to receive all the power and the honor and the glory. And that is our prayer for today. God bless you all.